Of Talking Ball. It's Jack here, and today, man, let's just have some fun. Let's talk about free agency. I got a little less than 30 minutes here. There's just listen. I'm sitting at work, and all these moves are coming in, and there's no way I could not talk about them. So let's talk about first off. There's no way around this. We got to talk about the biggest move of the day, which is the Milwaukee Bucks stretch. Well, first, the way I saw it, they signed Myles Turner to a 4-year, $107 million deal. And then it's reported that they stretched and waived Damian Lillard's contract. So that means they owe, against the cap, over $20 million in dead money over the next 5 years, that's the most by far in history. Now, the cap, it should be important to note, is way higher than it's ever been. So I think you got to balance those two things out, right? The most that's ever been waived and stretched, but also the most the cap has ever been. Now, does that mean that this is an insignificant amount of dead money on the Bucks cap? Absolutely not. $20 million is a lot of money on your cap. That's one solid player. It's a couple of bench players, depending on how you break that up. They do get Myles Turner, who I think is a tremendous addition for them as somebody who can really balance the floor for Giannis, somebody who can give them spacing, just give them a lot of what Brook Lopez gave them. I don't think, Brook, when he first got there, his drop coverage defense was excellent. I don't think Myles Turner is that level of defender, but I do think he'll help space the floor. I think he gives them a little bit more versatility offensively and in better defense, certainly, than where Brook is at this point in his career. Questions are, is this really enough to keep Giannis past this year? And if it's not, you've really mortgaged your future, not only with draft picks, but also now your salary cap is going to be hurt now moving forward. And speaking of the cap, I think it's very important. We've got to pay attention to this, guys. The past few years, the cap has gone up, the max that's been allowed, 10%. Next year, they're only saying it's going to be a 7% raise. Now, why is that important? It impacts how much money is going to be available for next year's free agent class. It impacts how teams go about projecting their roster this year, knowing what the cap is going to be next year. And it matters for teams who are, going to be right up against that second apron, the contenders, right, in terms of how they value their money. And then lastly, I think it could be an indication of where the NBA is heading in terms of its financial health. With the number of teams, we've had record sales with the Celtics, record sale valuations, I should say, with the Celtics and Lakers recently. We've had the Hornets sell in the past year or so. They're talking about an expansion team. I just wonder, how sustainable is all of this? Shea just signed one of the biggest contracts, the biggest contract, I should say. He got an extension similar to, it seems to be, from the reporting, similar to what Jalen Brunson did, in that he signed it a year early, which ends up saving the team quite a lot of money. So that was a team-friendly deal, as strange as that may sound. So I think, we're seeing the money coming in right now, but is there going to be a point in the next handful of years where the cap may not go up much at all? And that's something that I think we've got to monitor next year. Does the cap, go back up to 10%, or do we go from 7% to 5% raise, right? That's all very important in terms of how these teams are managing their rosters. Next up, let's talk about the Knicks. Knicks, look, they were in a spot coming into this offseason. They needed to get depth. And they didn't have a lot of flexibility to do so. So I think what Leon Rose has been able to do, got a little bit lucky, certainly, with getting Jordan Clarkson. The fact that he was waived by the Jazz, because if he wasn't waived, nobody was trading for him. But to be able to get a guy like Jordan Clarkson, who, yes, is a flawed player. And I do wonder, will he be able to transition into being, playing a role on the Knicks, whereas the past few years with the Jazz, he basically got to do almost whatever he wanted to offensively. And I don't see that being the case for the Knicks. Maybe it will be just in a shorter period of minutes. Maybe he plays 15 minutes. You get the ball, Jordan, but you only get 15 minutes. Maybe. But that is something I'm wondering because I'm not sure if he's going to be able to make that adjustment so seamlessly. However, with all of that being said, certainly an upgrade over Campaign. He's not going to bring the vibes like Campaign did, but certainly an upgrade talent-wise. He's a little bit bigger. Makes a ton of sense. And then they bring in Gershon Yabusele, Yabu, who had a really good year for the Sixers. Not many good things happened for the Sixers, but Yabusele had a good season for them. 6'8", 6'9", 250-pound forward, can play some at center. Stretches the floor, good three-point shooter, can attack closeouts. Not a great defender, kind of the theme with both guys they brought in, but they're a much deeper team now with those two guys, two reliable vets that the Knicks now have. And Yabusele effectively will replace Precious Achiuwa. So I think they've done really well getting those two guys in. Next move I want to talk about. Guys, Dennis Schroeder got a 3-year, $45 million deal from the Sacramento Kings. What is going on? And let me know in the chat. Let me know in the chat what you guys think. Like this video, subscribe to the channel. I can't believe Dennis Schroeder in this market got a 3-year, $45 million deal. I thought he was in for certainly less than 10 per year. Certainly less than 10. I know he had a good close to the season. I get it. This does help. Was it that Lakers deal that he supposedly turned down? I think it was like 5 years ago-ish now, 4 or 5 years ago. It does help him make up for some of that money. He is battling now with like Ish Smith to be the player who's been on the most teams in NBA history. He is, last year, I guess technically he was only on 3 teams. But, he's been bouncing around. Good contract. Listen. Dennis Schroeder, go get your money. Happy for you. But I just question, the Kings giving him that contract. What are they trying to accomplish in Sacramento with Dennis Schroeder, Malik Monk, Zach LaVine, DeMar DeRozan? Lots of questions, very few answers. They did get 2 solid college players, older college players in the draft, Nick Clifford and Maxime Reynaud, who I do think can contribute this year. But then the rest of the roster, it's like, where are they going? What's the goal in Sacramento? And it's a shame because they have a great fan base. And a couple of years ago, they made the playoffs. They went to 7 games with the Warriors. It seemed like there was potential for them to take the next step forward, and since then it's just been downhill. So I'm hoping I'm wrong, Sacramento fans. I am hoping I'm wrong, but it just, on paper, I'm not so sure about that. Let's see. Trent Watford signs with the Sixers. I'm assuming he's going to replace Yabusele, his role for the Sixers. The amount of playing time he's going to get, I think, will fluctuate greatly depending on the availability of Joel Embiid and Paul George. Those guys, it'd be very fortunate for the Sixers if both those guys played more than 60 games. So I do think Watford's going to get an opportunity for playing time with the Sixers. Now, a couple of moves that just came in, literally just came in a handful of minutes ago. The Duncan Robinson sign and trade. So Duncan Robinson sign and trade with the Detroit Pistons. He gets 3 years, $48 million to go to Detroit. And Simone Fontecchio is going back to the Miami Heat. I got to say, Trajan Langdon has done a fantastic job pivoting. Because I am sure he went into this offseason thinking he is going to be signing, Malik Beasley to a decent contract, and That is not going to happen, and it's going to be some time before we get some clarity, I imagine, on him. So we shall see. Speaking of the Pistons, Tim Hardaway Jr. has signed a 1-year deal with the Denver Nuggets, who have had I wouldn't say quiet, but maybe not necessarily like, it's not the Hawks, it's not the Rockets, but maybe a little bit under the radar quality offseason, getting Cam Johnson, Bruce Brown. So those two guys replace Michael Porter Jr. and Russell Westbrook. They also got Jonas Valanciunas in a trade for Dario Saric, which, I mean, it's not a home run, but it seemed like a no-brainer. Valanciunas can give them something off the bench, although defensively it is a little bit painful, and we're not sure, can Deron Holmes contribute? What will effectively be his rookie season? Tim Hardaway Jr. gives them more shooting on the wings. That's an interesting one, because I do think there were times. There's the big game from Julian Strawther. I think it was game 5 of the NBA playoffs. And maybe you're thinking he'd get more of a run, but with Hardaway coming in at the same position, hard to say that's going to happen for Strawther. But overall, a good quality offseason for the Denver Nuggets. Let's see. Any other moves around the association? The Boston Celtics continue to take the young, deep bench players from the Minnesota Timberwolves, this time signing Josh Minott to a 2-year, $5 million deal. Yesterday, they signed Luka Garza to a similar deal. The Celtics do not look like they are going to be really trying to win much at all. Maybe they'll be a play-in team just because of the talent on their roster, but they look like they are as close to tanking as a team with Jaylen Brown and Derek White can be. Jakob Poeltl signed a $104 million extension with the Toronto Raptors. 4-year deal. So they're going to pick up a player option in 2026-27, and then 3 more years will be added to that. The Raptors, man, they're locked in. They're locked in pretty much to this core, which is Jakob Poeltl, Emmanuel Quickley, Scotty Barnes, RJ Barrett. I don't think necessarily Brandon Ingram is locked in, but he seems to be part of the plan moving forward. And they also signed Sandro Mamukashvili. I'm not going to try that again, guys. I'm not going to try that again. I butchered it. I'm sorry. Mamu. Who, listen, he torched the Knicks. I think that was like a February game, maybe a March game. That was one of the most incredible shooting performances from a surprise person. He signed with the Raptors, 2-year, $5.5 million deal. He'll get certainly more of an opportunity for playing time behind Jakob Poeltl. See some other moves. Drop in the chat if there's anything you guys want to talk about here. Jericho Sims re-signing with the Milwaukee Bucks, who brought back a lot of the guys that they brought in last year. Talk about Kevin Porter Jr., Gary Trent Jr., Taurean Prince, and now Jericho Sims. A lot of continuity, I would say, from the role players for the Bucks. But I mean, does any of this matter if they end up having to trade Giannis? No, it just doesn't. They did trade Pat Connaughton. They got off his contract for Vasily Micic. They had to give up 2 of their own second-rounders in 2031 and 2032. Let me look at those contracts to see what was the reasoning behind that. Because from what I remember, I thought this was going to be, this is the last year of Connaughton's deal at like $9 million. And Micic, he is making $8 million, but it's $8 million. So I guess they save a little bit of money. Maybe a little bit better positional fit for Micic, who's a point guard. They have a little bit more of a need at the point guard spot. But otherwise, I'm not so sure that makes a ton of sense. Gary Harris also signed with the Bucks, so I guess he's kind of the replacement there for Pat Connaughton, who just he's certainly declined the past couple of years after being pretty good for the Bucks in the beginning of his tenure with them. Let's see. I think pretty much that's a wrap. That's a wrap of the recap so far of day 2. Could keep you guys updated. Any other moves that come in? I think for now we're gonna see a little bit, of a die down in terms of big moves in the NBA, but I think we've got the big moves out the way, and now we'll see some smaller moves, and then maybe, just maybe, there'll be one more big move this summer. But for the most part, probably got Summer League coming up, which I'll be covering here, and then I got definitely some college basketball previews for you guys later on as we move deeper into the summer. So until next time, guys, like this video, subscribe, drop your comments. Peace.